Tell him from me that he can live or die, Vincent. Will you shut up?" In 2020, Al Pacino's heart stopped beating. Paramedics brought him back to life, but something had changed forever. At 84, the man who played the Godfather is living a life no one expected. He is broke after losing $50 million making movies he hates to survive. And he has a girlfriend who is young enough to be his granddaughter. From DNA test drama to his dark beliefs about death, here's why Hollywood's greatest actor is now. He was born on April 25, 1940, in East Harlem, New York City. His parents, Rosa Girardi and Salvatore Pacino, were from Corleone, Sicily, and were trying to make a life for themselves in America. Their marriage didn't last long, and when Pacino was only 2 years old, his father left for California to work as an insurance salesman, leaving his mother to raise him alone in the South Bronx with the help of his grandparents, Kate and James Girardi. They had moved there from Corleone, Sicily, and became famous because of The Godfather. In the 1940s and 1950s, life in the Bronx was hard. His family had money problems, and his father's absence left a hole that never really closed. But his mother gave him something that would shape his future. She loved movies and often took him to the theater, where he got lost in the stories on screen. He was interested in acting even before he knew what it was, and those early trips to the movies planted a passion that would last a lifetime. As he got older, Pacino became known as Sonny among his peers. His friends said he was crazy and always pushing the limits. By the time he was 9, he was already smoking and drinking, and by the time he was 13, he was trying marijuana. He wasn't interested in school and was always getting into fights and breaking rules. He was kicked out of several schools before he got into the High School of Performing Arts. It seemed like the right place for him, but he didn't stay long after a fight with his mother about his future. He dropped out of high school without a diploma and didn't have a steady job. He spent his teenage years drifting with a group of friends who also didn't know what they were doing. Some of them got into trouble, and some of them turned to drugs. 3 of his best friends, Cliffy, Bruce, and Pi, later died of drug overdoses. Pacino could have easily ended up the same way, but something kept him going. Acting became an escape for him, a way to focus his restless energy on something bigger than himself. He later said that if it weren't for acting, he might not have. In 1962, when Pacino was only 22, his mother died at the age of 43. She had been depressed for years, and her death hit him harder than anything else. A year later, his grandfather James, who had been like a father to him, also died. In that 1 year, the 2 most important people in his life were gone. He later called that the lowest point of his life and felt like he had nothing left to hold on to. Many years later, in his memoir Sonny Boy, he wrote about how he felt. He wrote about his pain. "If I am lucky enough, perhaps I'll reunite with my mother. There, all I want is the chance to walk up to her and simply say, 'Hey, Ma, see what happened to me.'" After losing his mother and grandfather, Pacino threw himself into acting. It wasn't easy. He worked as a janitor, busboy, messenger, and postal clerk to pay for acting classes at HB Studio in Greenwich Village, where he met Charlie Elton, an acting teacher who would become his mentor. But he always had trouble with money. On nights when he had nowhere to stay, he slept on friends' couches and on theater seats when he had nowhere else to go. In the early 1960s, he was so poor that he had to sleep on the streets and eat whatever small roles he could find in underground theater productions. In 1968, Al Pacino starred in the off-Broadway play The Indian Wants the Bronx, which was written by Israel Horovitz and opened on January 17 at the Astor Place Theater in New York City and ran for 177 performances. His performance as Murph had a raw energy that felt dangerous yet strangely human. He wasn't just playing a violent troublemaker, he showed the layers beneath the aggression. Critics and the industry took notice. He won the Obie Award for Best Actor, his co-star John Cazale won for Best Supporting Actor, and Horovitz won for Best New Play. But there was something even more important going on behind the scenes. The Indian Wants the Bronx was put on at the same time as another play. In the Horowitz play, it's called The Sugar Plum. Pacino met Martin Bergman, the man who would change his life. Bergman saw something special in Pacino and became his manager. Bergman would help Pacino get some of his most famous roles, like in The Godfather, Serpico, and Dog Day Afternoon. Pacino later said that his career might not have gone the way it did without Bergman. A year later, Pacino made his Broadway debut in Does a Tiger Wear a Necktie?, a play by Don Peterson that opened at the Belasco Theater in 1969, was about teenage drug addicts in a rehab center. It dealt with themes of addiction and redemption. Pacino played Bickham, a troubled young addict with a tough exterior that hid deep emotional wounds. The production only ran for 39 performances after 9 previews, but it made an impact. Jack Kroll of Newsweek called him a hood with a poetic soul variety, and named him the most promising new Broadway actor at just 29 years old. When he won the Tony Award for Best Featured Actor in a Play, it changed everything. Pacino had trained for years under Lee Strasberg at the Actors Studio in New York City, which is one of the best acting schools in the world. Strasberg was a master of method acting, which means teaching actors how to use their own emotions to make performances that are true to life. Pacino later said that training with Strasberg gave him the confidence to go after acting full-time. Corleone in The Godfather wasn't just hard to play, it was a battle. Today, Pacino's performance is legendary, but in 1972, the studio almost didn't cast him at all because they wanted a bankable star like Jack Nicholson, Warren Beatty, Robert Redford, or Ryan O'Neal. Pacino, on the other hand, wasn't well known at the time. He had only one film credit and a strong theater background, but that wasn't enough for them. They wanted someone taller, someone who fit the part. Francis Ford Coppola, a Hollywood star, saw Pacino on Broadway and thought he would be perfect as Michael Corleone. Coppola saw something in Pacino that no one else did, the ability to show Michael's change from a good-hearted war hero to a cruel mafia boss. Coppola refused to give in, which led to endless arguments with the studio. At one point, Paramount tried James Caan out for the part of Michael and told Coppola that Pacino could stay as long as Caan played Sonny Corleone. This happened even after filming had begun. The studio still wasn't sure. They saw early footage of Pacino's performance and wanted him fired. Coppola knew he had to quickly prove Pacino's worth, so he filmed the restaurant murder scene earlier than planned. It was a turning point in Michael's life as a mafia boss, and when the executives at Paramount saw it, they finally understood what Coppola had seen all along. Pacino wasn't just good, he was unforgettable. From that point on, his role in the movie was secure. This performance earned him an Oscar nomination for Best Supporting Actor, even though many people thought he should have been nominated for Best Actor. He didn't go to the ceremony because he felt left out, but even without the win, his career took off. The Godfather made over $250 million on a $6 million budget, won Best Picture at the Oscars, and made Pacino a star. His performance as Michael was praised for its quiet intensity and the way he could communicate. That chilling look during the restaurant scene became one of cinema's most famous moments, but it wasn't easy to get there. Pacino later said that he was scared while filming because the pressure was too much, and the constant fear of being fired made it hard to concentrate. He even hurt his ankle so badly while filming a chase scene that he needed injections to keep going. Strangely, his first reaction to the injury was relief because he thought it might get him fired, which at the time seemed like a good thing. The stress of having to prove himself seemed easier. Kopp knew how much Pacino was struggling and did everything he could to help. He changed the filming schedule to give him more time to get used to the part. He also turned to Diane Catton, Pacino's co-star, who became his emotional support on set. She helped lighten the mood, and they often laughed together after tough scenes. Pacino would later say that he might not have made it through in 1973 if Kopp hadn't believed in him. actual NYPD officer who exposed corruption in the department. Pacino prepared for the role by spending time with the real Serpico and learning how he spoke and moved. He wanted to understand the deep sense of isolation that came with standing up to his fellow officers. The production had problems from the start. John G. Olson was supposed to direct, but he was replaced by Loom just before filming began. The shoot took place in the summer of 1973 on real New York streets, and the heat, combined with Lumit's fast-paced directing style creating an intense atmosphere on set, Pacino's performance earned him an Academy Award nomination and a Golden Globe win. With a budget of just a few $1 million, the film made nearly $30 million at the box office over time, and Pacino's performance remains one of the most powerful in his career. 10 years later, in 1983, Pacino played Tony Montana, a Cuban refugee who rises to power in Miami's underworld. The movie, directed by Ed De Palma and written by Oliver Stone, was based on the classic 1932 movie of the same name, but it was updated to fit the excess and violence of the 1980s. Tony Montana is cruel, ambitious, and unyielding from the moment he arrives in the U.S. He is set on getting whatever he wants. Pacino threw himself into the role, planning every detail of Tony's personality, including his accent, his mannerisms, and even how he held a gun. During filming, he got a serious burn on his hand from accidentally grabbing the barrel of a gun. The injury caused production to be delayed, but it showed how dedicated he was to making the character feel real. When the movie came out, it was criticized for its extreme violence and heavy use of swear words. The Cuban community in Miami also didn't like how it portrayed immigrants, so parts of it had to be shot in Los Angeles instead. The controversy didn't stop Scarface from finding an audience, though. It made $66 million worldwide and became a cult classic. Tony Montana's rise and fall serve as a cautionary tale about greed. Scarface was known as one of the best gangster movies ever made, and lines like "Say hello to my little friend" became famous. The movie also had an impact on hype, pop video games, and pop culture over time. In 1992, Pacino played a very different type of character in Scent of a Woman, which won him his first Academy Award for Best Actor. He played Lieutenant Colonel Frank Slade, a blind and angry Army veteran who spends the weekend with a young prep school student named Charlie Sim. The movie is about Slade teaching Charlie about life while secretly fighting his own inner darkness. To prepare for the part, Pacino wore opaque contact lenses to block his vision and used a cane even when the cameras weren't rolling to make his blindness feel real. His performance was a perfect mix of humor and intensity, making Slade one of the most memorable characters of his career. One of the most famous scenes in the movie is when Slade leads a young dancer in the tango, even though he is blind. When Scarface came out in 1983, it caused a huge controversy. Critics criticized it for being very violent, full of bad language, and what they saw as a celebration of drug culture. The 20-minute chainsaw scene shocked viewers, and writers Kurt Vonnegut and John Irving even left screenings. But the controversy didn't end there. Many Cuban immigrants in Miami protested, saying that the movie made them look like criminals and drug traffickers, which they thought was harmful. Even people who work in Hollywood knew something bad was going to happen. Martin Scorsese reportedly told Stephen Bauer, who played Tony Montana's best friend, that Hollywood would hate the movie because it showed how corrupt they were. But it was a huge hit, making over $134 million worldwide on a $31 million budget. Pacino's performance was praised, and his character's signature phrase, "Hecha," became instantly recognizable. His Oscar win was seen as it was about time that an actor who had already given some of the best performances in movie history got his due. Over time, the movie found a second life and became a cult classic, especially in the hip-hop and Latino communities, where Tony Montana stood for ambition and defiance. The movie's increased popularity led to more debates about whether Scarface was protest against excess or a symbol of the very thing it was against. These debates are still going on today, showing that some movies have an impact that lasts. Years later, Pacino played another controversial role in HBO. A 2018 movie called Pacino was about the Penn State child abuse scandal. It was mostly about 2 weeks in 2011 when football legend Joe Pacino's reputation was ruined when his former assistant Jerry Sandusky was arrested for sexually abusing young boys. Sandusky was later given a 30 to 60-year prison sentence. The movie raised a disturbing question: how much did Pacino know? In one scene, Pacino talks about a 2001 report from an assistant coach that said Pacino had abused boys. After seeing Sandusky molesting a boy in the team shower, Paterno told university officials but never followed through. That decision ruined everything he had worked for. Critics praised Pacino for showing Paterno's inner conflict, but the movie itself divided viewers. Some saw Paterno as a scapegoat, while others thought he had turned a blind eye. Over 300 of his former players protested the movie, saying it unfairly destroyed his legacy. Paterno died of lung cancer just months after being fired from Penn State. At 85 years old, the movie didn't take a side. Instead, it left viewers to decide if Pacino was guilty of inaction or just caught up in a system that failed everyone. In 2013, Pacino played another controversial role in HBO Phil Spector. The movie was about the life of the famous music producer known for changing the sound in the 1960s and for his strange personal life. In 2003, Spector was accused of killing actress Lana Clarkson at his mansion, and the movie was about his relationship with defense attorney Linda Kenny Bowden, who was played by Helen Mirren. Wondered if he could get a fair trial. Unlike most courtroom dramas, Phil Spector didn't focus on the legal battle. Instead, it showed a man losing control of his own story. Was he a genius who everyone misunderstood, or was he exactly what everyone thought? The movie never gave a clear answer, leaving audiences as confused as they were when the case first made headlines off-screen. In 2011, Pacino found out that he had lost $50 million to his longtime accountant Kenneth Starr was running a Ponzi scheme, and Pacino, who had been making millions of dollars per movie for decades, was almost bankrupt overnight. Starr had built a reputation as a trusted financial advisor, but behind the scenes, he was stealing from Hollywood's biggest stars. When the scheme fell apart, he was arrested and given a 7-year prison sentence. Pacino came back from a fancy vacation in Europe to find that all of his money was gone. In his autobiography, Sonny Boy, he wrote about the moment he realized how bad things were. After losing $50 million, Pacino took on projects he wasn't supposed to. He starred in Jack and Jill, a movie he later said he only did for the money. He also did speaking engagements and commercials. He called it a crazy montage of laws, but in the end it taught him to be strong. Even at the top of Hollywood, no one is untouchable. Al Pacino has never just been an actor. He's always been a storyteller who looks for meaning in the roles he plays and the projects he takes on. He wants to learn more about acting, break it down, and share it with others. This desire led him to become a director. His first big project as a director was Looking for Richard, which came out in 1996. It wasn't a typical movie, it was a documentary, a performance, and a personal journey all in one. Pacino wanted to show that Shakespeare's works are still important, so he chose Richard Roman III, a play about power and ambition, and set out to show that its themes are still relevant today. The movie moves between different styles. There are scenes from Richard Roman III were dramatized by actors like Alec Baldwin, Winona Ryder, and Kevin Spacey, and scholars and actors like Kenneth Branagh and Vanessa Redgrave were interviewed. The film was a hit. It won the Directors Guild of America Award for Outstanding Directorial Achievement in a Documentary in 1997. Critics praised it for making Shakespeare accessible and interesting, and Peter Travers called it a great adventure and outrageous fun. 4 years later, in 2000, he directed Chinese Coffee, which was a very different kind of. It wasn't about history or literature. It was just two men talking in a room. The movie was based on a play by Ira Lewis, which Pacino had performed on stage in 1992. The story is about Harry Lavigne, a struggling writer played by Pacino, and Jake Mannheim, a photographer played by Jerry Orbach. It takes place in Greenwich Village in 1982, over the course of one night as the two friends have a long and intense conversation. It premiered at the Telluride Film Festival in 2000 and was later shown at the Tribeca Film Festival, but those who saw it liked how honest it was. It was eventually released on DVD in 2007 as part of a box set called Pacino: An Actor's Vision, which gave more people the chance to see this hidden gem. In addition to directing, Pacino has spent years training the next generation of actors. Since 2000, he has been co-resident of the actor studio with Ellen Burstyn and Harvey Keitel. This isn't just any acting school. Some of the greatest actors in history have trained there. The studio changed Pacino's life, and now he helps it do the same for others. For Pacino, the actor studio is a place where actors can take risks. It's not about fame or success. It's about pushing yourself to learn without fear. Many of Hollywood's biggest stars, like James Dean, Marilyn Monroe, Paul Newman, and Jack Nicholson, went to this school. Pacino continues to help young actors through workshops and discussions, but he doesn't do it for the money. He doesn't just teach them how to act. He also encourages them to read, think, and explore literature and philosophy. He thinks that acting isn't just about performance, it's about understanding life. Al Pacino has spent his whole life in the spotlight, but he never got married, even though he was in relationships with Diane Keaton, Beverly D'Angelo, and Kathleen Quinn. In his 2024 memoir Sonny Boy, he wrote about why he never thought marriage would improve his life. He even called it an entrance to the pain train, shaped his ideas about commitment, and no relationship ever changed that. His relationship with Diane Keaton is one of Hollywood's most famous love stories. They met while filming Godfather in 1972, and she found him both charming and mysterious. They dated on and off for years, but by 1990, Keaton had had enough. While filming The Godfather Part 3, she told Pacino, "Commit or it's over." Pacino refused and she broke up with him. They met at a party hosted by actor Lee Sturg in 1979 and were inseparable for years, even traveling across Europe together. Pacino later said that Quinlan was the closest person he ever came to marriage, but he broke up with her. It was a decision that broke his heart for years, even though he never got married. Fatherhood became an important part of his life, and in June 2023, at the age of 83, he had his fourth child, a son named Roman with 29-year-old Nolola. The news shocked many people after reports that Pacino asked for a paternity test. He didn't think he could still have children. When the results showed that Roman was indeed his, he became a father again. Pacino and Alala started dating during the pandemic in 2020, but their relationship wasn't made public until April 2022. Their 54-year age difference caught people's attention, even though Alala was known for dating older men and had been linked to MC Jagger and Clint Eastwood in the past. Roman is her first child, but Pacino already had 3 twins, Anton, James, and James. Olivia Rose, born in 2001 with Beverly D'Angelo, and Julie Marie, born in 1989 with acting coach Jan Tarrant. Becoming a father again at 83 changed his life. His own father left him when he was young, and he never wanted to go through that again. Even after splitting up with Alala, he stayed involved with Roman. They talk on video calls and even play the harmonica together at 84. Pacino is still working in 2021. He starred in House of Gucci, and his upcoming project show he has no plans to slow down. The most anticipated movie is Modi, which is about the Italian artist Amedeo Modigliani and is directed by Johnny Depp. The movie follows 3 intense days in Modigliani's life as he struggles with his art and his own demons. Pacino is also starring in Ritual, a horror movie based on the true story of Emma Schmidt's exorcisms. The movie, which comes out on April 18, 2025, is about 2 priests who perform dangerous exorcisms while dealing with their own demons. For Pacino, acting isn't just a job, it's what kept him going through the hardest times of his life. He often says that it saved his life. His life has had its ups and downs. In 2020, he had a near-death experience that changed his outlook on life forever. He lost consciousness during an illness and had to be revived by paramedics. After that, he became convinced that there was no afterlife, which he shared openly. At this point in his life, Pacino is still active, a father, and still thinking about his life. He never took the typical road through life, but that didn't stop him from living a full one. On or off the screen, he is still one of the most interesting people in Hollywood.